Okay, fine. So just I want to recap what we covered in last two sessions. Okay, since we have few guys who are joining this session as a first session. So I'm not going to take much time, hardly 2 minutes. Okay. In the very first session as a demo, we discussed about what is Fusion applications all about. There we discussed Oracle acquired different ERP products and other enterprise products. From out of that, they built ultimate application called as Fusion applications. And other point we discussed is what is the difference between on-premise and cloud. And again, within the cloud option, what are the different deployments are available that we discussed. And after that, what is the difference between Oracle Fusion Financials and Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials? Here we discuss the point. There is no difference in terms of product. It's all about deployment. If you are going to deploy in your own server, that simply you can call as Fusion of Financials. If you are going to deploy your applications in cloud environment with the help of Oracle Cloud Solutions, that can be called as Fusion Cloud Financials. That's what we discussed. After that, we discussed about architecture of Fusion applications. We discussed we have a Fusion applications and database. In between we have a middleware, and we discussed about these points, and we touched based on all these what exactly the purpose of it. And later in the same session we discussed about uh, I think we took this for the second session. Okay, we discussed about what is the enterprise structure as per Fusion application, that we compared with EBS, and we discussed all the points. And other point in second session we discussed is role-based access control, which generally we call as security in Fusion applications. The security model, how the security model can be managed in Fusion applications. That's what we discussed there. We taken the simple difference, say comparison with EBS, and we discussed how different roles will work in the Fusion applications. And the final point related to securities, we have four type of roles, and those are equal to what exactly with the EBS we discussed. And in the same second session we just had a discussion about Fusion users. The final point here is the summary of Fusion users is we have two type of users: implementation user and employee user. Okay, this is what we discussed. And when you create the implementation user, which roles we have to assign to the user, and what is the difference between employee user and the implementation user. These 2 points also we discussed. Okay, that's all about last two sessions which we conducted as a demo 1 and 2. And today also we are going to discuss about few more topics, so that we'll get ready with the basic information to jump into the instance related stuff. Okay, in today's session, this is the agenda we have. Okay, so first we'll talk about functional setup manager, FSM. And after discussing about FSM, we'll talk about rapid implementation, what exactly rapid implementation, how it works in the Fusion environment. And finally we'll talk about data conversion in Fusion application. I taken this data conversion in this stage. Okay, the reason is that is Oracle made this very simple. So that is the reason. Before we get into the actual configuration process, let's try to have some understanding, so that will give more confidence when you're working on the application. Okay, so that is the reason just I taken the third session only before we get into the application. Okay, first let's talk about functional setup manager. Okay, talk about functional setup manager. Let me take that point here. Okay, I hope I'm recording this session. Yes. Okay, so functional setup manager. FSM. So when I talk about functional setup manager, similar to this, we have something in EBS called as, okay, FSM. I'm sorry, ASM. In EBS, okay, this is as per Fusion And as per EBS, that too especially in R12, we have a concept called as, okay, ASM. ASM stands for Accounting Setup Manager. Okay, Accounting Setup Manager. In EBS R12, by using Accounting Setup Manager ASM, what we can do multiple configurations, but not everything, very specific. Within the ASM, we can create the primary ledger, we can create the reporting ledger, secondary ledger, and legal entities, and we can do ledger specific setups. It can be intra or intercompany related basic configurations and sequencing, reporting, accounting sequence. And the other point is from the same page, you can get connected to organization definition form, which is owned by HRMS, and will be able to define the multi-org related configuration also from this environment. That means it's a very centralized place where we can do the different configurations. Okay, this is one place to do multiple configuration. That's how we have ASM in EBS release 12. Of course, we know we don't have ASM in 11i environment. Okay, the similar to that, what Oracle is, they given function setup manager. Okay, function setup manager. Before we get into the function setup manager, let's talk about R12. In R12, if you want to start with the implementation, what we have to do, we'll create the responsibilities, then we'll do all required multi or configuration, then we can start doing the setups. If you want to do the payable setups, you should switch to payables responsibility, and you can do all the payables related configuration. If you want to do any purchasing related basic setups, yes, you should switch to purchasing, and in the same way you have to switch to specific responsibility to do the specific application related configuration. So it's all about switching, and just it's a time taking, and again every time you have to switch if you are doing the setups in the different application. But by using the function setup manager, you don't need to switch from one to other environment, I mean to say kind of responsible environment. So all setups can be done in very centralized environment that we call as function setup manager. Okay, when I talk about function setup manager, I mean to say here in EBS, yes, we have to switch. If I go to payables responsibility, we are working as an implementation consultant. If you go to payables responsibility, whatever Oracle provided a seeded menu, with that menu, what are the responsibility created? If you go there, you will have an option. One, you can do setups. The second option is you can work on the transaction process. If I go to say payable super user responsibility, I can do payables related configuration. Other side, I can work on the transaction process. We can create that invoices, we can make the payment. Okay, this sort of work we can perform if you go to payables super user responsibility, or say payables manager. It's all about we are accessing the main menu. It's a seeded menu which is given by Oracle. But in Fusion environment, that completely they separated. Okay, only you can perform the setups within the function setup manager. If you want to work on the transaction process, you should give the access to the user to relevant roles. In EBS, based on the menu which you are using, the menu will allow us to do the setups as well as process related activities. But in Fusion environment, for setups they given separate roles, and for process they given separate roles. They separated these two activities, okay, with the different roles. That is the one point we have to understand here. And if you want to start with EBS implementation, what we do, straight away will go to the sysadmin and will create responsibilities and will be doing all the setups and all. But in the Fusion environment, if you want to do any implementation, first what we have to do is you have to enable certain objects. Here, before I talk about it, let me introduce some terms. So say we have a different primary business processes which we call as financials, say SCM, and PPM, project portfolio management. Okay, we know very well in R12 release 12 or 11i, the PA, project accounting. We have a project accounting which consists of costing and billing application. Along with that, as a solution of project suite we have a resource management, and project management, different applications we have. All the applications, the complete project suite in Fusion applications we are calling as PPM. PPM stands for Project Portfolio Management. Okay, no more we are going to call as a project accounting or Fusion project accounting. Just the term we have to use PPM. As a part of PPM, we have multiple applications: costing, billing, contracts, and project management, resource management, and many other applications also we have as part of this. So in the same way, we have a CRM. So these all we call it as primary business processes or else different product families. So these different product families in Fusion we call as offerings. That is the terminology we use when we are working with FSM. So financials we call as one offering, and SCM we call as offering. In the same way, PPM and CRM, all the primary business processes, okay, will be calling as offerings. This is the term we have to understand. When you talk about offering called as financials, I'll take financials. This we are calling as offering as per the functional setup manager. And within these financials, we know we have a different applications. Say GL, AP, AR, CM, FA, and we have other finance related applications also. I'm just listing out few. So within the financials, we have different applications. The financials are SCM, whatever these we are calling as offering. Within the particular offering means within the particular offering means within the particular primary business process, we have a different applications. These applications we call as options. Okay, we call as options. This is GL I can call as one option. The same way APR, CM, and FA we call as a options. So just this is the term we have to understand. Offering means specific product family, and option is nothing but specific applications. Okay, fine. If you are going to do the implementation in Fusion environment, what we have to do is first you have to understand what is the scope of the project. Definitely when you are working, we'll be knowing that, but based on the scope, so what are the applications are, what are the offerings you are going to implement. Based on that, first what we have to do is in fresh environment. I'm always referring fresh environment. I'm not referring Vision instance where some partial configuration is done and it's ready to use with the rest of setups. I'm not going to refer that. It's always I'm referring fresh environment. In fresh environment, what happens is, so as per your implement project scope, you have to enable offerings. Have to, the first step to start with this implementation is we have to enable offerings. Okay, say for example, I'm going to enable, as per my project, client is going to implement financial applications, so I have to enable offering. After enabling offering, if you take example financials, within the financials we have a different applications, nothing but options. So out of financial offering, which options you are going to implement for the client, you have to enable. That means you'll enable offering. Once you enable offering, you'll get an option to select options also. Then again you have to enable options. First we'll enable the offerings and we'll enable the options. In case of EBS, we don't do this kind of activity. Straight away we can go on to create responsibilities and we can start doing the setups and we'll get into the transaction process. But in Fusion environment, you have to just enable it. If you don't enable specific offering which you are going to implement, so you cannot get access to that. System won't allow you to have access to the relevant offering and options. Okay, so if you are going to implement only GL and AP and AR, GL, AP, AR, so in that case, enable offering called as financials and enable only these three offerings. Okay, done. Once you enable these offerings, you can create the project. You can create project. I mean to say implementation project. Okay, it's as simple as in EBS what we do is, if you want to create a primary ledger, you have to get ready with calendar, currency, chart of accounts, and accounting method. Okay, anyway currency is seeded one. by default Oracle is providing, so which we call as Oracle is delivering the values. So what we have to do is, if you want to create the primary ledger by choosing specific currency, we should enable the currency. If you don't enable the currency, you cannot find the currency when you are creating the primary ledger or any other ledger, right? So in the same way, if you want to create the implementation project, okay, at the time of implementation project, you have to select, you are going to implement, you are going to do that project against which offerings and which options, that you have to select. If you want to get at the time of implementation project creation time specific offerings and options, before that you have to enable, then only you can get it. So here, what is the meaning of implementation project? In case of EBS, we don't create any project and all. You may maintain information outside of the system through some dashboards or some tools or through Excel or some other way, by saying that which applications we are going to implement for the client, or the resource are working, which resource is responsible for which which modules. This is how just will maintain this information. Again, the progress also will be tracking outside of the system, because we don't have any feature within the application environment in 11 or release 12 which allows us to maintain which modules we are going to implement, which resources are going to work for that project, and what is the progress of the project, how much percentage tasks are completed. We cannot track all those information, but in Fusion application that is possible. Without creating the implementation project within the system environment, you cannot do any setups. Okay, so without creating the implementation project, you cannot do any setups. Here, please don't compare projects means some project related modules, I am not referring. Okay, anything. If you want to implement financials, you have to create the implementation project. If you want to implement SEM, you can create the implementation project. If you say, if you are going to implement these four offerings for one client, you can go with the four implementation project in the same instance, or else by selecting these four offerings, you can create single project also. You can manage how you just however you want, but it won't makes any big difference if you are going to have four projects for four offerings or one project for four offerings. It won't makes any difference. It will facilitate system configuration, that's it, and it will allow you to track what is the progress of task. Okay, which task is assigned to which resource, and how much is completed, how much in work in progress status, how much is not started. Everything will be able to track very detailed level. That would be very good information for the people who are managing the project. Okay, that's how we have a some kind of dashboard environment where we can see the very summary of information related to the project, how that is moving and what is the status, what is the risk involved in that project, and what are the delays, and everything you can find out. Okay, where does PO fall? So I didn't mention that. Basically, we have procurement also. It falls into procurement. There is one question from someone, where PO falls in which offering? Right, Satya. So for PO and all, we have offering called as procurement. And I have one more question from Maruti. The question is, can we use the same implementation project after some time in future for enabling the few new offerings? Okay, see, enable, I mean, you ask the question, can we use the same implementation project after some time in future for enabling the new offerings? See, we don't use implementation project to enable the offerings. First we enable the offerings so that those offerings will be available to create the project. Okay, within the project we are not going to enable anything. That is the point. See, let me just elaborate that point here. Anyway, I plan to discuss. See here, we first enable offerings. Within offering, definitely you should select options. Without selecting options, if you enable offering, there won't be any use, right? Okay, you should enable offerings under options. You may enable all options or specific options, and then you can create the project. While you are creating the project, you can select, okay, you can select offerings and options. Okay, at the time of implementation project creation, which offerings and options you are going to implement, you have to select. If you don't enable, you cannot select. That is the reason we are enabling first. Okay, so this is the point we have to understand here. I have some question from Satya. Are there statuses to track the project? Yes, we have statuses. We will be discussing now. Okay, the same we'll be discussing now. Fine, done. So first we'll enable the offerings and options so that you can create the implementation project. Say enabled offering called as financials, then I can create the implementation project against only financials. If I want to create procurement, if you want to do the procurement implementation, I should enable procurement options, offerings and options. Then only the procurement related offerings or options are available to create the project. Okay, done. We'll create it. After creating, what system will do is system will create the task list. Okay, so system will auto create. Okay, so system creates task list. The simple point here. I have one more question here. Let's focus on these questions first. So can you disable any offering options after enabling them? Yes, we can do that. But once you do the implementation by using those offerings, and there is option to freeze also, in that case you cannot do any changes. Okay, but by default, yes, you can disable also. You can enable, and a later point of time you can disable. Okay, fine, that is possible. We'll see that we'll be doing the same, because we'll go through each and every step what we are discussing, how we'll be working when we are into project. System will create the task list. What is the meaning of task list? Very simple. Say for example, I created project by selecting offering called as financials, option called as AP. In this case, to complete the AP related configuration, which setups we have to do, all the setup system will list out with the concept called as task list. Task list will talk about what are the setups need to be done in the system environment, the respective to application or specific offering. That all depends on which of offering and options you are selecting. Okay, so I'll say in the task list you can see payment terms, and say if I refer R12 financials options and payable options, say distribution sets. See, these are the different setups which need to be completed to start with the payables. These are the something like basic setups, right? The basic or advanced, whatever which are related to payables application, all system will auto generate as a task list. Okay, setup related functions we are calling as a tasks. The group of tasks we are calling as a task list. That's all. So depending on which offering and option you are selecting, system will generate the task list. Okay, once system will generate the task list, you can assign the task list to team members. So you can assign not only task list, we can assign particular project to project. We can assign project to project or specific offering or options or specific option or options or task list or specific task also. This flexibility we have. Say when you are creating the project, we can specify, I can assign the project to specific resource. Generally you may assign to who is heading that project manager or someone. The entire implementation project you can assign to specific resource, and you can assign specific offering to so and so consultant. Say the financial offering I can assign to financial consultant. If project is very big and it's very complex project, you may have multiple resource for financials itself. In that case, you may assign option called as GL to one resource and AP to another resource, AR to different resource. That's how you can do it. Otherwise, what you can do is, say in AP only there are multiple resources are working for AP implementation. Say client, we are doing global implementation and the very complex process. You don't want to give the option to one resource to do the complete configuration for payables. In that case, what we can do is the 50% of setups you can assign to one resource, the rest of 50% you can assign to different resource. you can do that. Other option is you may assign specific task to one resource. Say you may just assign financial options related setups to specific resource. This is how we have a flexibility to get assigned relevant project or offerings or options or task list or specific task to specific resource. This is what we can do, okay, when we create the project. Let me go through these questions which I can see in the chart window. So that we already answered. Can you disable? Yes, that also discuss. Will task list has marketing mandatory as optional? Yeah, you can just you can see that you can find over there which is a mandatory and which is optional with a asterisk star mark. You can see that they given that they should give it. Yes, it's not assigning mandatory. Assignment is not mandatory. Assignment is not mandatory. If you have a requirement, or generally if you want to have a tracking, if you want to see the progress of the project which you are implementing, so in that case assignment is required. Okay, but by default when you are creating the project, from which user you are creating, by default the project will get assigned to that user, and rest of offerings and options and specific tasks list or tasks you no need to assign to any resource as a mandatory activity. It's all about your requirement. If you want to track detail level the progress and what is the status exactly the project is standing, you can assign, otherwise you can ignore it. The flexibility and the advantage I'm trying to explain with this point. Okay, fine. So this is what we have to do. We'll be assigning the offerings, options, and task list, okay, to a specific resource. The other point is, then basically we'll start with the configuration. We'll start with the system configuration. So what are the setups we are doing for any application? It's always recommended to do within the project environment. In one instance you can create multiple projects. Whatever the project you create, that definitely will be referring particular offering and options. When you are doing that specific offering and option related setups, you should do the setups from that project only. Outside of the project also system will allow you to do the setups, but few setups you cannot complete if you are not doing from project itself. That I'll be explaining what kind of setups and all. It's always recommended and you should do the setups from project only. Few setups you can do outside of the project, but you cannot complete all. That is the reason always we do the setups from our project environment only. So we'll start with the system configuration. When we start with the system configuration, we no need to switch from one to other place. So only one place, that is a function setup manager. From there, by selecting your project, you can complete all the system related configurations for which offerings and options you have access through your project. Then once you start with the configuration, we have a different statuses. So by default, you can set the status as not yet started. And if you already started working on the setups, you may mark the status as in progress. Already you completed the relevant setups and all, then you can mark it as completed, so that the overall project status can be tracked. How much percentage of tasks are completed, how much percentage of tasks in work in progress status, how many tasks are already completed. Everything the project managers will have a great visibility throughout the project related activities. It's very specific to configuration, that's all, not related to something else. It's a very specific to configuration related progress tracking can be possible. Okay, then we'll start tracking the project, means we'll set status for whatever the setups we do. Finally it will allow us to track the status. Okay, this is how we'll start with the implementation. When we start with the system, this is how we'll be starting. So first we'll enable the offerings, then within that which options we require, you have to enable. It's not mandatory you have to enable everything. Which modules we are going to implement for the client, the relevant options only will be selecting. Then you can create the implementation project. To create implementation project, you should enable. Without enabling, you cannot find any offerings or options at the time of implementation project creation. So the implementation project always will create by selecting offerings and options. And the other point here is Once you create the project by selecting offering the option, system will auto generate the task list. It's nothing but it will list out which setups you have to complete for specific module. One system will create the task list. The entire project or specific offerings or options or task lists are very specific task also you can assign to respective resource. Once that is done, you can start configuring the system, but it's not mandatory. Okay, assignment is not mandatory. Anyway, for project system will take by default user. I mean, from which user you are creating that user, it will be marking as from assignment. The rest of are not mandatory. And you can start with the system configuration. So based on assignments, what you got, accordingly you can just keep updating the status based on the what are the setups you completed and what is the progress of your work. And finally, that all the from the different offerings and options of entire overall project related progress can be tracked, since we are setting the status for each and every task or offering which you are working on. So we'll start doing the configuration, we'll start setting the status, and that can be tracked. So this is how we'll be doing in Fusion applications. Any questions on this function setup manager, please let me know. We have some other advantages also we'll be discussing for sure, but this is a basic information which we should understand before we start with the system. Any questions on this? Any questions? Fine, seems to no questions. Okay, so this is all about just function setup manager. If you want to get access to this function setup manager, you have to assign the role called as application implementation consultant role to user. Okay, which role will give the access to do all these activities in the system? The role name is application. We discussed in last session also, but just I'm repeating since it's more relevant. Application implementation consultant. And we have another role called as application implementation manager also, but consultant role is more powerful compared to manager role, because manager cannot do certain activities but consultant can do. The manager means just to monitor the project, but consultant is the one who has to do the setups. That means the full privileges are available with this role. Okay, so the correct role which we have to use at the time of implementation is application implementation consultant. Along with that, we discussed another role also, that is IT security manager. That IT security manager basically just we don't require to access it for specific tasks. Definitely that role is required, and when you are working some admin related and IDM, okay, in that cases that role also recommended. That is the reason generally what we do whenever we create any project. Okay, any project can be finance related or it can be any implementation. It can be finance or procurement or SCM or PPM, whatever we are going to do the implementation the system. Generally, ideally, we will be assigning the two roles: application implementation consultant. The other one is, as we discussed yesterday, IT security manager. Irrespective of offering and options, you can just assign these two roles to the user, so that you will get complete access in the system environment with respective to functional area. I mean to say setups configuration. For any application, you can do the setups with these two roles. Okay, that's all about function setup manager to understand. So apart from this, I'll just take a different point, let it be. Okay, but this is sequence. Whatever the points I mentioned here, I just mentioned very sequence. So the same sequence we have to follow when we are working on the system. Okay, done. So this is the one point which we planned to discuss today. And other point here is rapid implementation. Okay, sorry. Rapid implementation. What exactly this rapid implementation all about, and how far we are using this rapid implementation technique in our projects. Okay, rapid implementation. It's a simple. By seeing this term, we can understand. We can just speed up our implementation uh, process. I mean, the time also drastically we can just cut down that implementation time with the rapid implementation approach. So there are many tools Oracle built to support rapid implementation, which is available for EBS also. In EBS also, we can use business related, we call as accelerators. By using that technique, okay, which is available for specific industries and specific countries. Oracle is offering rapid implementation solutions, country and industry specific. Those are available, but we don't see most of the companies are using because those got certain limitations. Okay, so that is the reason we don't see that practice. But here the rapid implementation gives different meaning. It's not like what Oracle has a ready-made solutions to do the complete implementation with a simplified process where you can run certain process. System will automatically, the tools will configure your system automatically with a basic configuration. Rest of configuration generally you will take it up as a post implementation related setups. So that approach is available from Oracle, but this rapid implementation is not referring that. Here rapid implementation the fusion means you can do certain setups through spreadsheets. Okay, what you can do is the rapid implementation approach in the fusion applications. See, for example, I want to create primary ledger. Say I want to create the chart of accounts. I want to create the primary ledger. If I want to create all these setups within this environment, what we have to go with a certain navigation. That means we have to go to specific task. There we have to enter some data. Again, we have to click on some tab, and or else we have to click on next, and we have to place the cursor, and we have to do multiple actions to complete the simple setups. To avoid that kind of process and all, what Oracle did is for specific configuration, but not everything. For specific configuration, Oracle is providing the spreadsheets. That spreadsheets only we call as rapid implementation spreadsheets. So if you want to just create the calendar, chart of accounts, and primary ledger, legal entities, operating nets, all these you can just enter in the spreadsheet. Okay, the spreadsheets also Oracle is delivering. We don't need to create anything. We have option to download the spreadsheets for which data Oracle is giving option to create offline, which can be imported into system where automatically system will take it as a configuration. So simple practices, we can download the spreadsheets. That too you can download from FSM only, Functional Setup Manager. In the spreadsheet environment, you can enter all the information stuff entering in the system. Okay, you can enter everything that can be imported into your selected project. Okay, you can target one project and you can import that setup related data. Our system automatically will auto configure the project environment. So, but this approach is available only for very specific setups. If you talk about okay our financials, hardly this process is available which objects are more relevant to enterprise structure definition. So very specifically, like you can create the calendar and you can create the chart of accounts, you can create the primary ledger, and you can create legal entities, operating it, and very specific setups only you can do. But frankly speaking, if you look into current implementations and all this, most of the people are avoiding this process. Okay, the expectation of if something goes wrong, if simple value goes wrong, everything will get disturbed. That is the reason you can see most of the companies are not using this rapid implementation, since doesn't have a good scope to come up with a complete solution of configuration. It supports very specific setups. That is the reason even Oracle is offering this. You may not see, only you can see for the purpose of loading the chart of accounts, only for that majorly just we can use that, but not what Oracle is offering and all. What exactly for which areas of configuration Oracle is offering, that will look into our session. I mentioned this rapid implementation process related overview, how to do it, from where we have to download the templates. These spreadsheets are available for which functions with respect to finance, which setups, that will be discussing and will be testing also. I'll show you. how to download and how to enter the data in the rapid implementation spreadsheets, how to load it, how system will give the result, everything we'll see. But generally you don't see this practice most of the clients are using. Okay, so just this is a simple point to understand. That means you can do the setups with the help of spreadsheets. That's all. You can enter the setup data in the spreadsheet that you can load into the system environment by targeting specific project. That's all about rapid implementation. Any questions on this, please? Any questions on rapid implementation? Okay, no. Fine. Okay, hope everyone can hear me. One question. Okay, from someone. Will spreadsheet upload calls? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed out that. Let me open the chat window. Question from Satya is, will spreadsheet upload calls and API? No, it's not API. Okay, okay, you are talking about this setup related data. Okay, they have some technique and all. Okay, generally we are not calling that as a API. Okay, it's with a simple technique directly that information will get loaded into targeted tables. That's how they are doing. Okay, fine. It's just direct load. Okay, just in the we'll be using the concept called as kind of data loader, right? Directly we can load say chart of account related values into the environment so that the information directly will get stored in the database. When you talk about data loaders, generally data loader process won't work through interface or API. It's direct kind of plugin. Directly it will target the respective tables based on the form which you open. It will go and sit the data in the respective table. In the same way it works here. Okay, and other question is rapid implementation all about only spreadsheet import or any more ways to load the data? See, as a practice of rapid implementation, the solution is available. See, basically rapid implementation means it's all about loading the data, entering the data, loading the data. Apart from that, within the functional setup manager, we have an option where we can move the specific project related setups to another project. You can say, for example, you created one project. That project you are treating as a testing where you do setups and you'll do the testing, and now you have a requirement you want to conduct the CRP or UAT. In that case, instead of creating one more project, what you can do is within the project, what are the setups you complete, all the setups you can move to other project. And again we have a flexibility, you can move the setups from one instance to another instance also. That possibility also we have. And we have a flexibility where you can export all the setup data into spreadsheet. The same you can import into another project or another instance also. It's all about data exports and imports. Okay, data exports and imports, that is part of FSM, but within the FSM rapid implementation also one of the option. That's all. Okay, fine, done. We have different options that I mentioned in the course content. So when we go through this course, definitely we'll be getting more information on that. We'll see that. I have a question from Manoj. Spreadsheet will work as web ADI upload. Yeah, it's similar, but I don't say it's exact. In the place of web ADI, we have separate concept. In Fusion, in place of web ADI, they give an ADF-DI. Okay, ADF-DI, but comparison you can take as a web ADI. Yes, Manoj, yes, you can compare. It is similar to web ADI which we see in EBS, but not exactly. Okay, so generally when you talk about web ADI, we know very well web ADI we cannot use to load the setup data, right? Web ADI we can use only for transactional data, but here the spreadsheets will support for configuration setup related data. Okay, equal to web ADI in Fusion we have concept called as ADF-DI. We are not calling as web ADI in Fusion environment, we are calling as ADF-DI. Okay, application desktop development framework. DI means data integrated. Means with the ADF technology, they built that spreadsheet logic and all. That's the reason we are calling as ADFDI. In EBS we are calling as web ADI. Okay, here we call as ADFDI. The web only is here, web only that built with ADF technology. So we are calling as ADFDI. Okay, so that is a point here to understand about that. And the question from Muni. However, we have WebAD and EBS for some of specific processes. What make difference this spreadsheet? I think I discussed the same points. I explained those WebADs we can use for the purpose of transactional data, but in Fusion, what are the spreadsheets we have? Those we can use for setup related data. And equal to WebADA, just now as we discussed, we have ADFDA. Yes. So question from Maruti. The question is this import export process available from master data also same as Hyperion? Yes, that the same point I am going to cover in the next point. Today we have three concepts to discuss. Data conversion. This concept will answer to your question. Okay, we'll come to know within just two to 3 minutes. We'll talk on that more detail level. Okay, that's a question from Maruti. And Manoj, yes, Ronald. Question from Ronald. In Fusion, to upload the assets, can we use spreadsheets or ADF? See, so everything is spreadsheet only. It can be like a spreadsheet, same spreadsheet we are using for the purpose of setup data loading, master data loading, transactional data loading. Okay, again, transactional data loading we are using ADFDI and FBDI. You'll understand. I don't want to give you some confusion by explaining now. We'll go one by one so it will be more clear for you. Yeah, everything works, but we'll be using spreadsheet only, but the same spreadsheet functionalities are different, and the spreadsheets are specific to data. That we'll be discussing more detail level. So question from Satya. Is subscription pricing based on offering or based on offering plus options? Definitely options. Options will make offering, right? So say for example, I'm going to take a subscription for GL and APR. Accordingly, I'll be charged. Okay. So generally, like here, things will work based on the user, more into in the cloud environment, cloud base, more into user specific. And again, you can select the offering, but now you can see more Oracle is just selling offerings only. Yes, if you go with some kind of special request, they can definitely allow you for specific options also. That is also possible. But now subscription, you can see user base, offering and user base. Okay, sometimes, or I mean, there are multiple options available with Oracle. You can go with some package, or you can go with selected options. Sometimes, if you are taking one module, you should go with other modules also. There is no option for you to opt to only specific module. Okay, fine. See, for example, if you are going with financials, okay, you are going with the financials, you may not get you no need to take the complete offering called as a procurement, since there is some dependency, but Oracle will give you the kind of complementary kind of thing. It's nothing but just purchasing. When you say procurement, we have multiple applications. Okay, procurement contracts and what I can say, like the supplier portal. Okay, we have a different applications which comes under this procurement. But if you go with the financials, along with the financials, Oracle is offering purchasing also, but not Oracle is not offering for you to use in terms of business process related transactions and all, that has to be, I mean, purchasing, basic purchasing is required to support finance related configuration also. With that idea, Oracle is just giving option where you can do that. Okay, fine. Okay, I don't see any more questions. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can ask me directly by unmuting your mic, or else you can post in the chat window. We can discuss. If no questions, I'll directly jump into this data conversion concept. Okay, fine. Okay, we have one more question. Is there any option similar to procurement? We just no. Procurement here, we don't call it as procurement. That is a solution as within the procurement. Okay, within the procurement only we have that options, but you don't call it as iproc. Fine, done. So that's all about rapid implementation. To understand, if you have any questions on functional setup manager, the purpose of functional setup manager, or if you have any clarification you require on this functional setup manager, or if you want to understand something else in this stage about rapid implementation, you can ask me. Anyway, once we get into the system, it will be more clear on each and every point which we are just having now as introduction. So I have one more question from Maruti. The question is, in security, is the e-business process does enforce any functional security, or is there importance of business process? See, as we know, when you talk about EBS, in EBS, what level the security can be enabled? User level, application level, responsibility level, and BU level. It's all about how we are segregating the data or access, and all the level security is enabled. Almost same works in Fusion applications also. Okay, Maruti, if you can ask me very specific question, I can answer. It goes into very generic. If you have a specific example, you can ask me. I can give you the quick answer. I request you can speak directly. It may be easy for us to uh, complete immediate base. Yeah,
Yeah,
Maruti.
yeah, Lakshman, I saw that there was a L1, L2, L3, L4 processes. So, like, it's based on based on the offering, based on the option, and based on the next levels.
What what
There
what
were
what do you mean by L1, L2, L3? What you are referring? Are you referring something, some supporting related, or what exactly?
no. It's based on the level of that the business process.
Okay. See, that security, because see, it's not like related to business process. If you don't mind, you can mute your mic. I'll be just talking about this point. Okay, great. So see, when you talk about when you are working, when you are implementing the financial applications or any applications as a consultant, if you when you take that kind of subscription from Oracle, the security in the sense, it's all about access privileges in terms of administrating the application, or in terms of doing certain kind of job schedulings and other job scheduling means don't take very generic reports or some programs. It's more related to admin related job scheduling. These and all Oracle will be providing based on the subscription. Okay, when you talk about IDM got different level of securities. Okay, depending on which adoption you are taking. Okay, that is SAS or PAS, IAS, depending on that the security they'll be giving. Let's take simple example. When you create the primary ledger, system will generate the data roles. That's what we discussed, right? So when you create that, system will generate the data roles because of we have some LDAP, some jobs, LDAP jobs. So the jobs need to be scheduled. Whenever the jobs are scheduled, then only system will create the data role. Otherwise, it won't create. And again, the data roles won't sync with IDM. If you are going with the option called as on-premise, you will be able to do that scheduling also. If you are going with the option called as cloud base, that has to be done by Oracle only. You don't get that kind of privileges. That's how you can compare the security in the Fusion environment. Apart from that, user related or few pure functional related configuration, it can be user related process or system configuration related point of view, that won't makes any difference. Okay, will be having the complete privileges. Only administration part related security will be managed by Oracle in case of cloud. And if you are going with on-premise, you'll have a complete access to everything, where you can manage the level of securities, how you want, to whom you want to give. That's how it works. And if you are expecting other than this something else, you may just raise the point. We'll see. Okay, the business
I will
process.
raise it.
Yeah,
Lakshman, I might raise this at a little later point in time, because
yeah.
I think like maybe we might go back to one class back, because like security is like there is a
Yeah, no problem. We'll
even I
see.
need to,
It's see
yeah, little deeper
when
into that one.
we talk about security, it's really a good point. We should understand. No issues. We'll take 2 minutes. We'll discuss on that. Yeah, this is a point which we discuss security. You can come up with your example or what you are trying to understand. So this is what we discussed, right? RBAC, role-based access control, which we are where security model can be managed with the job, duty, data, and abstract roles. Another point you
Mm,
mentioned the term called as process. Yeah,
Yeah, Lakshman, I think, yeah, I think this is again like this is purely based on the functional security and the application security,
mm.
because like little one step above this, I think.
No. Just you can make. I mean, you can reframe your question in other way. So that let's try now. See, because it's not a big point to just hold it and to see later point of time. You can just ask me question. You are trying to understand what application level security or some function related security or process related security. What exactly? Some example you can give since you are asking how security and all.
Yeah, yeah, it's like again like I think it might drill down to some of these like duty roles or like data roles, but that the one that I'm talking about is like pretty much like the application levels,
Yeah.
the business process security.
Yeah, done. I got your point. Simple. The business process security can be managed by roles. It can be business process. Say, for example, you want to have a security for the business process called as, say, something like P2P. The relevant roles we have to assign to the user so that the user can work on that. If you want to allow the user to work on specific application related process, you have to assign relevant roles. That's how we can secure the access. And if you want to allow the user to work on only specific tasks, activities, only you want to allow the user to create the invoices. In that case, accordingly, we can have a separate duty roles. That's how we can manage with the security for what process or for which configuration, okay, specific user require access, that can be managed with the roles only. Simple point, with the roles you can manage different levels or different ways of security. Specific process you can have a specific roles or specific task or specific object, you can have a different roles. That's how we can manage. Okay, if you are just looking for something else apart from that, yes, as you said, definitely we'll take it. Will once you get into the application, you'll see how things are going to work and all, then you can raise your point. Okay, if my answer is not just giving the expected answer, fine, done. So that is a point here. Okay, now let's jump into this data conversion in Fusion applications. So just I taken this point because it's very important to understand. So Oracle made this process very simple in Fusion. So that is just now I'm going to give you some basic understanding how this works in Fusion. So data conversions, data conversion in Fusion applications. So when you talk about data conversions, we know very well. Okay, here I'm talking about Fusion, and here I'll talk about EBS. Okay, anything, it's 11 or 12. When I talk about data conversions in EBS, we know very well what practice will follow, right? We have to create the templates, data templates. Okay, we'll create the data template. Generally, we don't create from scratch. We'll be using some other project. We'll just do the required changes and we'll be using the same. Let's take the term as a, we'll create the data templates and we'll be sharing with the user, and the user will be explaining them, and they'll be filling with the data. It can be master data, transactional data. They'll be filling and they'll be sharing with us. That means we'll get templates with data. Then we have to share with technical resource. Okay, technical resource. We'll create the templates, we'll get the data, and we'll share with the technical resource. What technical people do is they'll start working on the programming and all. They'll be writing the program, and first they'll convert, right? Convert the templates into CSV or flat files, whatever. Okay, they'll be converting the templates into CSV files or say flat files. After converting, they'll be writing a lot of programming and all. Okay, they'll be extracting the data. Before that, they'll convert, then they'll create the staging tables, right? They'll create staging tables. They'll do a lot of coding, means programming logics they'll be writing. So to extract the data from that flat file and to load the data into staging tables, they do a lot of coding. With that coding, by mapping all the parameters, and they'll take many other considerations. Based on that, they'll be moving the data. Simple point is, with the programming, they'll be moving the data from the flat file to staging table. Once they get the data into staging table, they'll be writing the programming to validate it. Okay, they have to write many validations for the data which is there in the staging table. Once data is validated, the validated information they'll be populating in interface, right? Respect to interface tables, so no open interfaces. They'll be populating. To populate also, they have to write coding, right? Once data is populated interface, as a functional consultant, or it can be done by technical also, it's a simple program we have to submit. Just will import by running that import program. So we'll be importing. So out of all these, so what we do is, these key steps, okay, need to be performed by technical resource. Even if you take very just, it's a kind of vanilla implementation. Take simple example in EBS. Even if you are doing the vanilla implementation, technical resources are mandatory, since data conversion is very important task, right? So that is the reason we should have a technical resource when you're working on EBS. It can be very kind of vanilla implementation, or definitely it's going to be very customized. That's definitely we require. But even in case of vanilla implementation also, we require technical resource. But when we are going to work on fusion applications, we don't require any technical resource to do all these activities. This can be, I mean, this similar practice can be done by functional people. How that can be done, we'll see. We'll compare with EBS and we'll understand, since we know EBS practice very well. Okay, here we have to create the data templates. We have to create the templates to collect the data when you're working on EBS. But in Fusion point of view, Oracle is delivering all the templates. Simple, you can go and download templates. In case of EBS implementations, we have to prepare it. But in Fusion, you can just go and download the templates. The open source, those are available. Anyway, we will download in our classes from the Oracle website. The same will be using in the system. Just will fill the data and will be loading, and will follow complete process. We'll download the templates. Here we have to create, here we have to download. Here we have to get the data from the users. Yes, definitely here or anywhere we should get the data from business users. Okay. Simple point is, collect data from users through this templates. We'll share with this template, we'll collect. Here are that same process. Here we'll be sharing in EBS. We have to share the same templates to the technical resource. There should be some discussion where we'll be explaining and we'll be referring to specific attributes or fields, and we'll come up with that logics and all. But here you don't need to share with anyone. What you have to do is, you don't need to share it. Here not applicable. And here we'll do what we'll do. The technical people will be converting into flat files and all. That can be done by us. Okay, we'll be convert into CSV file format. So to convert within this, okay, predefined templates, users will be entering the data. Once they enter the data within the template, will be having one option called as convert into CSV. Simply just with one click, the entire template data will get converted to CSV file format. Done. Now here, what technical people are doing, the data they are just loading into staging table to conduct required validations and all. For that they are using some programming. But here I'll come to the questions. Yeah, whatever the questions we have, just definitely will be discussing. Just let me go through these process and simple points. Then we'll talk about the questions. Okay, maybe the further points may clear your doubts. That is my expectation. Otherwise, I don't want to stop your questions. Okay, so I'll explain the complete how this conversion process works in Fusion. Then we'll take the questions. Okay, fine. So we'll convert into this. But in case of EBS, it can be 11 and release 12. Just we have to load the data. Technical people will be loading the data, populating the data into staging tables for validation purpose. Okay, but in EBS, sorry, Fusion, equal to staging tables, Oracle is giving UCM, Universal Content Management. Okay, it's a ready-made solution from Oracle. What you have to do is you'll be converting the templates into CSV. Simply those data, okay, will load into UCM, or technical people are doing with the help of programming. They are loading the data into staging tables. Here, similar to staging tables, okay, we have a tool which is a part of middleware. Okay, we can load the data into UCM. UCM stands for Universal Content Management. UCM stands for Universal Content Management. Okay, what are the CSV files we have? The data we can just load into UCM. When you say convert into CSV, say have one data called as vendor master template. Okay, vendor master template. I filled just say 100 vendors into that. Once you click on convert into CSV, automatically system will generate zip file. Within the zip file, we can find CSV file with the data. That zip file we have to load into UCM. It's a simple task. It's a simple task. It's a 1 minute job. Okay, that's how Oracle simplified will be loading. That means in EBS it's equal to you. The technical people will load the data into staging. After that, they do some code, write some coding to validate it. Here you don't want to do anything. So once you just load the data into this, when you go to the next step, system will perform the validation and it will take into next step. Okay, let's see that also. Okay, first we'll load the data into UCM. After loading the data, we can populate data into interface. That's all. Just simple program we have to run. Here the programs we call as jobs in Fusion. Okay, just I mean to say request. And from SRS window we'll be running the request and request sets, right? The same request set in Fusion we call a job and job set. Okay, simply we'll be running one job, saying that just load the data from UCM to respective interface. That's kind of similar programs we'll be having. So we'll run it, then data will be populated interface. From there, to get the data into application, you just do the import. For example, if you want to load the supplier's data, hardly it is 5 minutes job. Sometimes that may not be required. You may do less than 5 minutes time. Okay, that's how Oracle simplified. Okay, so we'll be importing. That means you are going to take into the base tables. Now let me go through these questions. Security we discuss is templates in Excel format. The question is, these templates will be in Excel format? Yes, Excel format only. And how does the validation works here? Because the templates are prepared by Oracle. That means the templates are created or developed by Oracle based on our Oracle structure, the respective data related structure. That's how the validation already inbuilt within the templates. Whatever the data you are going to add, the data related tables, uh, attributes will be there within the respective table. And even in this templates, you can capture additional information also, which generally we capture through DFFs. Okay, so that's how they have a validation, because as these the entire the structure of table related columns only they given within the templates. That's the reason those are validated templates, we can say. We'll see just how those looks like, how it works, and we are going to work on that. Now I'm just going to give some idea how simple this data conversion process in Fusion when you compare with EBS. So because of this reason only, just Now in EBS case, if you are doing any implementation, minimum will go with one technical consultant at least for this data conversion. If some technical objects are there, yes, definitely we require. Okay, but at least for data conversion, we require technical consultant. But when we talk about fusion application implementation, we don't require any technical consultant to perform data conversions. Now this job also, this responsibility also goes to functional people only. That's how Oracle simplified. And other question is, so there will be standard error code that Oracle will support. See, simple. When you are loading this, we have a certain place where Oracle will identify the errors and it will throw error message saying that, so here supplier site is missing and so on, so option is missing. In that case, you have to go back to that spreadsheet and you have to correct it. Again, you have to convert it to CSV. Again, you have to load into UCM. Again, you'll be populating that interface and they will be importing. To do all this job again, to redo the same, it won't take more than 5 minutes. That's it. Okay, you'll get good information from system will be helping us saying that in this load in this spreadsheet so and so records are missing so and so data. That's how it throws some error message. Finally, validated data only we can load. If something is not valid and all, it will stop us within the process. However, when we are trying to import the sales order information to receivables, what happens? If we have a proper information that can be imported to receivables as auto invoice, if some records are not proper, if something wrong with that, it will throw some error message. You can go and see in the error tables, interface table level, detailed description and all. In the same way, here they are not showing through former kind of some other representation. The errors and all will be captured into spreadsheet that will get generated. You can open and you can see that and you can resolve it, and on the fly you can correct and you can resubmit also. That is possible. Okay, another way, you no need to go and redo also. Okay, that if you don't want to go and do template level changes on the fly in the process only, whatever the error message Oracle is giving, there only you can go and change it or add some information, then immediately it will allow us to submit and stuff going with the entire process which we followed. So that's all about this. So other question is, all records will error out or same records that are good. See, if you have in specific load, if you have specific records which are errored out, complete process will get stopped. It won't take. So it will take all valid into that. It will completely stop the process, and because our intention is loading all, right. So that even system also they set to behave in accordingly. So it's not like it will accept a few which are valid, other it won't stop. Yep. So it's not all. It won't. If some spreadsheet load is errored out, it will stop everything. It will stop. It won't take. If all are fine, then only it will take. That's it. Okay. So that's how data conversion process works. Now, if you have any questions on this, please. If you don't have any background noise, I request you to ask the question directly so that quickly we can complete that. We can just conclude the discussion without taking much time. In case of chat, typing in the window, it is difficult for you. And again, reading and when I'm explaining, you cannot ask any cross question. So that is a disadvantage we have. If you don't have any background noise, I request you to just directly to speak over the mic. If you have some background noise, yes, always I request to type in the chat window only.
So Lakshman, this is Satya. So
Yes.
if you populate the data into the interface, right?
Yep.
So do you need to check the interface what is populated? Like how do you do that? Like in
No.
EBS we can go with the background and then
No, see, in cloud environment, Oracle is not giving access to interfaces and all. Even they're not giving directly access to base tables also. Just only the option. If you want to see the data which is there in the any tables, only the option is we have BI, business intelligence. There we have a kind of some say dashboard where you can write some queries to fetch the data and see. So Oracle given that option to generate the custom reports, but since there is no other option to go and see the data which is there in the database, For verification also, we can go and use that function. That's how it works. We don't, Oracle is not giving any database connection directly when you are working on cloud environment. In case of on-premise of Fusion, yes, you'll have all the rights. You can directly connect to the database, and you can have a any kind of syntaxes you can write and get fetch the data. But here only the option is through BI you can do that. But BI is, it's for the purpose of reporting. But as a workaround, we'll be using that option to query any data from the database. But whatever you are loading directly, you cannot query, and you can see however you see in the EBS. If something wrong, definitely system will be throwing some error message. It will give the good information so that we can go and correct it there itself.
What about if you want to write a custom validation? Like it depends on your the type of data you are handling.
You cannot, because see, when we are doing this process with this Oracle predefined spreadsheet, you have to follow whatever the rules they written, because however they design the spreadsheets, accordingly they written the programming in the system when we are doing these imports or validations. So if you want to go with a custom, it's all about you have to go with some custom interfacing concept. Okay, just it's all about loading the data from the different source, because these spreadsheets won't support. In that case, we have to go with some different option. Okay, we cannot do with Oracle standard templates, but when you talk about integrations and all, with that approach you can load it. For that we have separate process that I mentioned. What are the different options are available? I'll give you the overview, because we cannot do any integrations in this environment since we are not more middleware experts. So I'll take you through what are the different options we have to load the data online or offline from third-party systems or other Oracle applications, means from EBS to Fusion. These all points we'll be discussing. I mentioned in the course content saying that Fusion integrations. I think that is a point I mentioned in the course content. We'll touch base on that. Any other questions? Okay, fine. And then that's all for today. So from tomorrow, we'll be just sharing the link with the guys who already done with the subscription, who already taken the subscription. We'll be sharing the link to only those guys who are interested, who want to continue the classes. Those guys, we request them to complete the formalities. So with that reason only, today also I taken around 1 hour session only. This is almost 1 hour, but from tomorrow I'll be taking 2 hours. 2 hours for sure. Will be starting sharp 7 o'clock. I'll be sending the link before only so that I can start sharp 7. Okay, now please get ready by 7 o'clock from your end also. Just this message for the guys who already subscribed this course. Okay, that's how it works. From tomorrow we'll start with instance. Okay, tomorrow session will, yeah, 7 a.m. IST. Yes. Okay. Yeah, correct. That is there. 500 notes, 1000 notes. Yes, Manoj, we cannot do anything with that. For subscription, are you accepting? Yeah, 500 and 1000 notes I am accepting, if you don't mind, through bank transfers. I have one question here. Are you accepting 500 and 1000 notes for subscription? Yes, we are accepting, but that should be done through net transfer. Not physical notes I am not accepting. Virtual notes I am accepting. Okay. Yes. We are accepting, not physically, virtually. Find that. Okay, see you tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I'm extremely sorry. Yesterday, I shared my contact number with all the guys in the session, and I shared my number, but I forgot my mobile at home yesterday. And sorry for the inconvenience. After giving my number, after ending the session, I checked my for my mobile. I didn't find it. Then I realized I forgot at my home. I could see many calls. A few guys called. So I'm really sorry for that. Now I have mobile with me. If you want to speak to me after this session, directly you can call me. We can have a just any kind of discussion. What you want to understand, or what concerns you have, something else, whatever. Okay. I'm sorry for that yesterday. What happened, for something like miscommunication. Fine. Okay. Yeah, Maruti. Yes, you can call me. Now I have mobile with me. You can call me after 5 minutes. Okay. Any other questions? Ronald, question from Ronald. There's a question or something. Oh, let me see. Requesting for the Excel sheet after classes for our better reference. Definitely, I'll do that. I'll be expecting the same. You should have a good reference from the sessions. With that idea only, I'll be sharing all these spreadsheets also, which I'm writing. The detailed information I'll be sharing, but I didn't share in earlier. The first session, second session, I uploaded in YouTube. I request you to go through those videos for a few days. From today, I'll be sharing this session's direct video. I'll be sharing. You can download the first and second session. I'll be sharing after maybe after 1 week. I request you to go through in YouTube only for 1 week. After 1 week, I'll be sharing those two videos also, which you can download. I'll be sharing directly through uh, Google Drive. I'll do that. Yeah, Ronald, I'll be sharing. I'll be sharing this spreadsheet also along with the today's video. Today's video I'm going to share with everyone who already subscribed. But the first and second session, just give me some time. Time being, you just meantime you can go through YouTube link. Okay, so that's all. And we have any questions from anyone? Okay, thanks. Thank you. And recorded video will be shared. Yes, Anthony. I'll be sharing the recorded video. Hope you subscribed. I have to check our records. Subscribed in the sense we'll be getting within 1 hour. And Prem, we are very fortunate to part of the session here. Thanks, Prem. Thank you so much for your comments. And any other questions? Okay. Just once again, I'm sharing my contact number. If we may have some few new participants in these classes, so my contact number is I'm typing here at the same time. Just going to say it's a 8106068686. Once again, I'm repeating because when people are playing the session, they may not see what I'm typing in the chat window. The chat window you can see only in the live session. In recording it system, the GoToMeeting won't capture chat related information. So that's the reason once again I'm repeating my contact direct number. It's 8106068686. Okay, fine. So done. Okay, I shared my direct contact number. If you want to have any discussion, you can call me after 5 minutes. Fine then. See you tomorrow. Okay, so this is what I planned before getting into the application. What better understanding you should have, but it's not a better understanding, it's a basic understanding. I'll call. You'll be having better understanding once you get into the classes for sure. So when I'm just see, this is how I plan, and if you have some suggestions you can give me. I'm ready to take and implement for your convenience. So I'm explaining just whatever I'm explaining. I'm writing spreadsheet. I'm just listing out the points. I'm taking one by one and I'm explaining. This is what I felt. It's really a good way to go with the sessions. The complete classes I'll be running in this mode only. I'll open the spreadsheet. What we are going to do, I'll write it. Then we'll do one and we'll be updating the status as a completed. Again, we'll take next step. We'll do it. We'll be updating the spreadsheet. The same spreadsheet I'll be sharing with you guys also, so that you can use this spreadsheet for quick reference. For other purpose also you can use it. I don't have any objections. Okay, so that's how it works. So since no questions, fine, we can just wind up the session for today. I'll catch you tomorrow same time, 7 o'clock. Maybe tomorrow we'll see less number of people, because we are going to share this meeting link only for subscribed guys. Okay, then have a good day and good night. Thanks for joining the session. Thank you.